So that's what happens when you give Game Freak a bit of a budget. And some creative freedom. An open-ended adventure in a futuristic, high-tech but mostly barren and abandoned world with humans living in designated colonies far apart from each other, where you and your monster partner battle other weird creatures that look like regular animals got mixed together with things you find in nature, mostly plants in this game's case, where defeating a region's boss grants you another mark of victory, like a badge, or another flower in your hair. You learn more and more abilities, but you can only equip a limited amount. You face your rivals who are on a similar journey, doing similar things as you. So yeah, it's Pokemon again. Post-apocalyptic Pokemon. Well, there are certain theories about the world in Pokemon being already post-apocalyptic. I mean, look at the first enemy you encounter. That's a Venusaur, like in those Pokemon but realistic fan drawings. And the region you start in is Kanto. And to open the first boss monster's lair, you have to collect 3 keys. A blue one, a red one, and 1 yellow. Come on. Yeah, all jokes aside, they're sure having a bit of fun with their new IP. The Pokemon similarities I mentioned are purely superficial. In truth, this game is a lot closer to Nier in many aspects. And when I say Nier, I'm of course referring to Nier Automata. We have this abandoned modern world. Skyscrapers, giant machines, left behind after a cataclysm, overgrown with vines, fused together with roots and trees. Though where it is more of nature reclaiming the land in the absence of humans, in the case of Nier Automata, in Beast of Reincarnation, it's a major theme, both visually and in terms of story. Humans have been brought to the brink of extinction, purged away in fortified colonies, with most humans having their souls transferred into machine bodies that are slowly corrupting, leaving only mindless husks behind. Animals have been mutated by the blight, spreading the sickness further if not culled. Our main character is this deadpan girl with almost no life experience, only knows how to hunt and to kill, only follows orders, who discovers life and the world through her journey. Yeah, if you'd make her a robot, slap down Emil somewhere in the world, you could sell this as another sequel or spin-off to Nier. Wouldn't be the first spin-off of a spin-off. Just look at this game. This beautifully desolated landscape, to once again borrow the description from another game's title that ironically doesn't feature a world nearly as beautiful. And listen to the music, those serene and calming melodies, the dreamy way it's sung. Though there could be a bit more variety, you mostly hear the same tunes again and again. So the game is a whole lot of Nier Automata, mostly in its presentation, with a pinch of Pokemon in-jokes. Some Sekiro for the reaction-focused and parry-heavy combat, and even some Secret of Evermore thrown in for good measure. Yeah, you didn't expect that now, did you? I have a soft spot in my heart for this often overlooked stepchild of the Mana franchise, this weird and dark, semi-official Secret of Mana clone, where you traverse the world not with a party of other RPG tropes at your side, but with man's best friend, your trusty companion, your dog, who pounces on enemies and sinks his teeth into them, who's not following in goose step but roams around on his own, but always close by. And he warns you of enemies, notifies you of things he found by sniffing and searching around the game world. It's pretty much the same in this game. Your wolf partner Q never travels too far from you, but also doesn't constantly stick to your side. He barks if he spots enemies or interesting things, and so long as he's in your closer vicinity, even marks everything on your HUD. But since this is a modern game and players don't like when bad things are happening out of their control and game designers haven't found a good solution to it, Q, in stark contrast to Secret of Evermore's dog, remains invisible or more non-existent to all enemies for as long as you haven't engaged in a confrontation. He will never alert enemies on his own, they will never spot him, he will never get hurt for as long as you are out of combat. Get spotted though, or attack first, and he's fair game. Even if you flee and are so far away from the enemy that they can't get you, Q will continue to fight and be pursued. Though I guess in another attempt to offset some player frustration and as to not need to micromanage your wolf, enemies generally prioritize you over Q. The main gameplay loop has you enter and explore a new area and through some light puzzles, chores and some platforming make your way towards the main beast of the area, while partaking in all kinds of smaller activities on your way. Reach an out-of-the-way spot, discover a small side dungeon, defeat a special enemy and collect all kinds of loot through that. Mostly resources, but often upgrade material as well, or skill books and the like to learn new abilities or crafting recipes. Kinda what you expect from open world games, even if the open world is fragmented into still large enough zones. And when you completed all your main tasks in a zone and reach the boss, you confront it in a spectacular fight. And after defeating it, you get a bit of exposition and then it's off to the next area. And I guess this fragmentation, this division of the world into these zones, gives the devs a bit more freedom with the variation in environments. There's nothing as outrageous as we got at times in Nier. This game still tries to depict a realistic world engulfed in fantastic stuff. So of course the general surroundings don't differ all too much from one zone to another. It's similar vegetation, climate, a somewhat natural flow in topography, you don't just leave the mountain peaks and emerge moments later at the sea. But still the game plays around with varied environments, from wide open fields to the more narrow streets of a city, complete with subway stations and train yards, to rocky canyons, to labyrinthian caverns, magnificent temples, swamplands and little villages. While there are a lot of interesting places inside those levels, with many hidden goodies and a lot of fun challenges, it can get a bit repetitive after a while, so it's a good thing that these areas aren't overwhelmingly huge. It's like, as soon as you grow tired of them, you pretty much completed them anyways, so it's fine to move on. It's a fine balance for a game to tread. And the thresholds differ from player to player, so for some it might already feel like a chore to visit all the landmarks in a zone, seeing little value in the activities or rewards, and for others, there might not be enough. For me, it's overall a good amount. Just enough to do to keep me excited and feed into that gamer OCD, but not so much that I lose interest before I reach a new area, with new visual designs, fresh encounters and an unfamiliar layout. Though one problem I have with the areas are the many instances where the game doesn't let you explore. Mostly through invisible walls that are everywhere. In the most arbitrary places, where it looks like you can go further or even found an interesting spot worthy to explore. But no, this is as far as the game lets you go. The systems don't even work correctly in some of those places. And sometimes the game even commits the most infuriating cardinal sin of bad open world design, in turning you around and giving you a text box telling you to go the other way. It's so unimmersive, especially since the world or story or whatever doesn't actually care. I'm not allowed to go this way because there's something more urgent to do first, but I can waste hours in that direction. It's just silly. And it's a shame because you have some really fun movement abilities. The game gives you quite a bit of freedom when it comes to traversal. You can stand on many narrow edges in the level geometry, Emma climbs on most structures, your running jump is pretty far, there is no fall damage, and then you have all your blight abilities with your magical hair. Yeah, Emma is almost as talented as Dixie Kong and can use her hair to fling herself towards anchor points, use it as a makeshift elevator to rise rather high up or even create bridges out of it. And of course you can combine all those abilities to reach even the farthest places. It breaks the level geometry, but not in a bad way, and often the locked off areas are behind gates and the like, where you need to find a key or terminal or complete some other task to open them, so the progression through a level is still pretty solid. These abilities also give you a lot of options when it comes to entering combat. Oh yeah, the combat, the meat of the game. Maybe. At least a huge component, and complex to boot. At its core, it's another Sekiro-like, like many action games have been in recent years. The game doesn't really play like Sekiro or any of the Souls games, but you just can't deny the influence these games, starting with Demon's Souls, have had on the video game industry. Enemies that can kill you quite fast if you just approach them all out offensively, so it encourages a methodic approach with a back and forth between reactively parrying and dodging and actively creating openings in the enemy defense. A replenishable healing resource and discoverable checkpoints that revive all enemies when you heal yourself and restock on healing items. The experience loss after death, that isn't really here, so I guess the game wouldn't count as a Souls-like. I mean, I wouldn't count it anyways, but there are still the aforementioned elements. You can handle a lot of the fodder enemies by just attacking and maybe dodge every now and then, either by sidestepping or jumping, but at some point you are required to engage with the parry system or perfect dodges, as some enemy attacks cover a lot of ground and somewhat home in on you. Now, a huge difference compared to Souls games is that you can easily cancel out of attacks to defend. It doesn't seem to work with all actions, like some special attacks or really strong ones can't be aborted, but for the most part, if you see an enemy winding up for a strike while you yourself are in the midst of an attack, you can immediately go on the defense and stop your strike for a parry. The first indicator that this game prioritizes action and spectacle over mastery of systems. And it works rather well for the game. The presentation often is flashy and spectacular, so it's fine if the actual gameplay is as well. So you also get a whole bunch of different attacks and combos that give you a lot of different approaches to battles. And I really mean different attacks. You start off with your standard light combo and a quick attack special move, but throughout the game you unlock more and more moves that can be broadly categorized into two types. Defeating bosses rewards you with new special moves that function like combo finishers, and depending on where in the combo chain you use them, you create different blight effects. Let flowers sprout out of the ground, send out vines, create thorny brambles around you. The other type is all about your sword attacks, and you get them through leveling up, and these really increase your fighting repertoire. It's not just stat upgrades or the odd passive effect. I mean, these are still there. You can upgrade most of your moves to make them more effective, but most of what you learn alters the gameplay. Moves where you change your stance for a follow-up attack if you stand still after an attack, different dive attacks from the air, partner attacks with your wolf. And Ku has his own moveset as well, that you can also expand in two ways. For one, he learns blight attacks, same as Emma, and by successfully parrying you accumulate flower points, yeah, like Paper Mario, that you can spend to have him use one of his special attacks. There is some Pokemon in this system for sure, but he can also learn a whole lot of other attacks that aren't flower themed, or learn how to use certain items, like an avalanche dog, or something. And you can assign a small number of those moves to his active moveset for him to use them on his own accord. This all opens up quite a lot of different tactics. And the game offers a good variety of foes, flying ones, swimming ones, ground-bound beasts or humanoid robots with varied enough movesets, but this didn't prevent the game from repeating certain encounters over and over. Even some bosses are reused in later encounters. Many of the harder foes, who require more of you than just punching the attack button 3 or 4 times in quick succession, also disrupt your combo constantly, giving you little chance to play around with all your fancy special moves. You can pull it off, but it requires patience and the right timing and knowledge of the enemy's moveset. This is once again an example of two intersecting philosophies hindering each other. The methodic Souls-light combat, even in this faster-paced Sekiro-like variant, isn't really made for spectacle fighting combos. It appears a bit like an identity crisis. That said though, the game pulls it off well enough. As I said, you can cancel out of your attacks to defend, which keeps a greater flow during the battles, and your increasing arsenal of moves and attacks gives you lots and lots of opportunities to take control of a battle. drive the enemies back or together and find a window to pull off your special moves, which gets easier the farther you get in the game. So I'm having quite a bit of fun exploring these intriguing places, fighting all the different foes, learning new abilities and find ways to utilize them. As for the narrative, well, it could be worse. It's rather tropey, conversations are full of awkward pauses, characters beating around the bush with important information, though this game isn't the worst offender by far. Spoon-feeding you revelations throughout the game instead of dumping it on you at the last minute. Still, characters often act not entirely in tune with their motivation, dropping little hints on you without good reason, or sparing your life even though they went out of their way to kill you to absorb your powers. And this comes with another one of my pet peeves, where you win the fight, but in the cutscene afterwards your enemy is fine and dandy and knocks you out effortlessly. Dialogues during gameplay segments are way too long, distracting from other stuff or stopping you from interacting, as to not skip the conversation. And these happen unprompted at random moments, so if I'm about to face a group of enemies but my friend wants to talk about her cooking, I now either wait around doing nothing until it is over, or start the fight and calmly ramble on about carrots and potatoes while I'm fighting for my life. There are many segments in a level where you are only exploring. No fighting, no operating devices, so these conversations should have been relegated to those moments. The whole setting is fine enough, though not original in any way. There is some interesting world building going on, but we have seen and heard it all before in other games, or shows, or books. Our heroine herself doesn't fare any better. The same emotionless killer we have seen so many times in Japanese games and anime. So the only new thing the game offers is the theme of nature being this destructive and deadly yet beautiful force. This is also not entirely original, but the game pulls it off really well. All the designs of the wildlife merged with beautiful flowers are superb. Forests that just grow overnight and disappear again in the morning. The play of colors created by all those flowers blooming everywhere. The patches of grass growing wherever you step, like in Okami. It's some really nice details and gives the game its identity, and it works really well with the rest of the setting and the music and all. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this game. I like the combat system and I grow more and more fond of it the more abilities I unlock. This game actually has a good skill tree, something that has become a bit of a rarity nowadays. But there's also a good amount of flaws. The invisible walls, the awkward story segments, mechanics not always working right, or maybe they do but then they are a bit too awkward to be useful, like some commands you can give to Ku to preemptively attack an enemy, but he just doesn't do anything or slowly walks over to them, whereas with his actual combat commands he executes them immediately and even gets teleported to be in the right position for it. There's some repetitive activities which are mostly here because of a lot of superficial systems and mechanics. Like, why are there containers locked with a number code that you have to find, but it's always behind an elite enemy nearby that plays an audio log afterwards which just has the code arbitrarily attached to it, like it's not even part of the message. There's no puzzle, it's just here to have something. Then you get to pray at shrines to increase your amount of healing vials. You can upgrade different parts of your home base with special robot parts. You can cook meals to increase your stats permanently. But instead of tying those to well-hidden collectibles or a handful of special challenges in each region, you have to find a multitude of everything. You have to find 10 shrines to increase your healing vials by 1. You have to find 5 or 7 or 10 robot parts to upgrade the workbench. And an increasing amount of modules to unlock more room for growing ingredients in your base. And you have to use a multitude of those ingredients in each dish you cook. Why not hide only 5 shrines in the whole game to increase your healing, but make it really challenging to get to them, instead of hiding 10 in a single area? Why not always only require 1 robot component for each upgrade and hide them in special spots in the game world, instead of sprinkling them everywhere, hidden amongst regular loot containers? There's also a superficial hunger system in here that gives you some health recovery outside of combat, but it's really easy to not even notice. Especially Ku never really got hungry during my travels, so why even have the mechanic? Why tie it to a bit of health recovery and not to little helpful actions he can take? Like, you have to keep him fed so he follows your commands or use his abilities. Or finds items for you, like in Secret of Evermore. As it is now, the system feels more so tacked on, so you have more stuff to collect. Again, I don't think the game goes overboard all too much with the open world busy work, but there's still quite a bit of it in here. But as I said, I think the game pulls it off rather well. It's not the most amazing thing I have ever played, and it's also not the most fun I had or the most engaging experience of this year. But it's a fine game, and I'm glad that I have taken the time to play it. It succeeds as an action game and sports some really neat visual designs that tie into the mechanics really well. So yeah, I think this new approach to the Pokemon franchise is really worth giving a try. And with that, I'm off. I wish you the greatest of days. This has been Rady, and I hope to see you again on the next game.